regarding paint that's actually blistering on a vehicle, you can actually see it right here. This area right here. I also have, as I go to the left, I have another area right here and a third area where the paint's completely coming off. This is on a Buick Rendezvous. So the one thing I'm going to have to do is to remove this little trim piece. I'm going to have to remove this trim piece. That's the first thing I have to do. And I'm going to open up the hood. Okay. These are the bolts I have to remove, or nuts. There's 5 of these I got to remove the trim piece. I also notice over here there is paint peeling off. See that paint peeling off? So I'm going to try and fix this area too at the same time. See all that paint peeling off? So that's what I'm going to do for this project. There's a lot of adhesive here. I'm going to try and heat it with a hot air gun and see if it comes off easier. So this is what it looks like. I actually broke the piece of rubber right here. I'm going to have to use new adhesive, probably peel this before putting it back on. I'm going to use the hot air gun to try and peel this glue off because it seems hard to come off. Maybe when it's heated up it'll come off better. You want to put this on a medium setting. You don't want to put it too hot and keep it at a distance. So the other thing you don't want to do is to put the heat too long in one place because you'll damage the paint that's already there. I'm going to start by sanding with 50 grit sandpaper to start to remove all the stuff I don't need. And I also put a cloth underneath it so to catch any dust. I don't want it going into the engine. So one thing I'm going to have to do is to actually peel the paint that's actually coming off in this area. You want to actually peel off anything that seems to be bubbling up because you're going to have rust forming there eventually. You want to sand it down to bare metal before you prime it. Okay, I'm going to use the prep all to clean the area and try to remove, the residue from the adhesive and also the sanding. See all the dirt that comes off on here? The next thing we have to do is, before we apply any primer, we have to mask areas we don't want the primer on. Using a spray can, it's going to get all over the place, so I'm going to have to shield certain areas. So I want to show you what I did for masking. I use cloth. Some people may use newspapers, plastic. I prefer cloth. So I basically masked it using masking tape all the way around the areas that need to be primed or painted. You can see how I did that. Any other area is covered by cloth. If there's any spray paint that's overspraying some areas, it's not going to hit any areas I don't want it to hit. There's many different options. You can use paper, you can use plastic, cloth. I have a curtain, old curtain, and a sheet. I got it between $1 and $2 at a thrift store. So I think it works the best when as drop cloth. It can be reused. A duplicate color perfect match scratch filler primer, a gray primer to start out with. The one thing you got to do is to shake it, make sure the ball's rattling inside for about a minute, and every 10 minutes you have to shake it. It's always best to shake it as you're using it. So these paint cans actually cost me, I think, about $10 a piece. I need a primer, I need a regular paint to put on the vehicle, and I also need a clear coat. Between the 3 cans, it cost me close to $35. You don't try to spray too much in one shot. You try to go over it multiple times. So now you can kind of see most of the areas are gray coat primer. I'll have to let this dry, and then I have to sand it with 800 grit sandpaper. So now I'm going to focus on the inside of the hood. Note the other thing I did underneath, I actually put the old curtain to catch any dust or so nothing falls into the engine bay. So the next thing I'm going to do is prime it, but not with the same primer I used before, because this area can't be seen since it's under the hood. I'm going to put a red primer on it and then some green paint. It doesn't matter because no one's really going to see it anyways. Now we're back to the top of the hood. I'm going to have to sand the primed area on the top of the hood with 600 grit sandpaper. I have to do that till the surface really looks smooth. I noticed a lot of imperfections in the primed area. You can see the edges there, not perfect. Actually, the camera doesn't really show it. I can actually see a lot more imperfections when I look at it with my eye. And I'm going to try and smooth it out and reprime it. Probably have to do this a couple of times before you feel comfortable with applying the paint. So I'm going to start with the priming. This is how my sandpaper looks like. After sanding, you can see there's a lot of debris on the sandpaper, which is black. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is to actually use the Prep All chemical solution and clean the areas where I did sand. before I apply the primer again. So I want to show you what the surface should look like. It should be pretty smooth with no dips. There's a little bit of a crater here, but I think it's okay. I have a molding that goes over this. I'll just show you how the surface should look like. These are all remnants of previous paint. I'm going to paint over it because I have a molding that comes over this. But at least if there's future rust, it won't rust. That's the whole idea, to protect it from rusting. I'm going to start applying the paint. I have to wait 15 minutes or so before the next coat. You can see it's not really uniformly spread. I'm going to have to wait to dry before I apply the next round of coating. Some areas are heavier than others, but I hope to smooth that out later. I'm going to show you another area that I actually masked so I can paint it better. I have some scratches here, and then a small scratch here, and here too. I'm going to spray paint these areas where the paint was actually rubbed off. There's another area right there. This is one area right here. There's another area here, another area here, and then we have the two bigger here areas there. I'm going to actually try and spray paint that shortly. One additional thing I have to do with the molding that came off the vehicle that I had to remove that was glued in place. I have to actually remove the glue from here. And you don't want to put the highest heat, you want to put like low heat on this one. Try not to put the heat in one position too long. Seems to be peeling, I guess. I guess if I heat it some more, maybe it'll peel easier. Make sure you wear gloves when you do this because this will be hot. I have the molding here which I was working on, and I need to glue this back onto the vehicle. There's a lot of glue residue on this which I have to remove. I'm going to use a 50 grit sandpaper to actually make the surface better. I'm going to show you what it looks like. You can kind of see this area has already been sanded. It's kind of rough. There's very little glue on there. I got to do the same for this and these areas here too. And they have to be kind of rough for the adhesive to actually adhere itself to the materials. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be using this Prep-All cleaning solution. This mixture is pretty flammable, so you have to be careful when using it. Keep it closed when you're not using it. I'm just going to use wipe off all the debris off this molding. And you want to do this in a well ventilated area because this stuff is flammable. It's not something you want to breathe indoors. So I've finished the first couple of coats of paint. Now I want to kind of make it more even. This is the area that was rusted, so I want to try and even it out in the next set of paint. So I put the molding back in. Okay, this is how the molding will sit. There's an area here that's covered with paint. I'm going to try and even this up a little bit. That's how it'll look when it's all done. I'm going to try and make this area a little more uniform. These you really can't do much about, but I can maybe sand it a little bit. That's what I'm going to try and do. Remove the irregularities that you see on this side. Try to make it a little more uniform so it looks nicer.